I would like to say thank you very much to Martina for putting this together. Really appreciate it, and Lauren naturally, and the AT&T Asian and Pacific Islanders Club. Also Scott Reagan, Martina's husband. Scott is my producer. I broadcast 2 radio shows, and so I do appreciate everything that Scott's put together as well. Again, my name is Gary B. I'm a sports director, broadcaster, show host. Also, every Saturday, if you take notes here, I'd advise you to take some notes because it'll be very informative here. But every Saturday from 11 a.m. to 12, I broadcast a show called the Sensei Heart Show. And what it is what we do is educate and teach people how to live a safer life. So again, that's every Saturday from 11 to 12 on 590 a.m. The new format is 590 The Man. They have a sister station, by the way, 1380 The Woman. So make it even here, right? So again, that's what we put together. Sensei Hart, let me speak a little bit about him. First of all, he's going to be our guest speaker. He is naturally the individual who hosts the show every Saturday. And I say Ernest Hart Jr. is his name, but I say Sensei Hart. Sensei is a Japanese word for teacher. Sensei has done thousands of seminars throughout the world, educating individuals on self-defense and personal safety. A few other little things about him before I bring Sensei Hart up here. He's a 4-time world kickboxing champion. He has over 15 different black belts. Also, he was an executive protection committee person over the years, taking care of celebrities and different movie stars. And speaking of movie stars, he himself is a movie star. If you've ever seen the movie Batman and Robin, Mortal Kombat, or Karate Kid, he was part of the MMA division of those particular movies there. And he worked close with Arnold Schwarzenegger and George Clooney, just to drop a few names out there. So he's done a super job. He's also authored books. As we mentioned, as Martina had mentioned, at 12:15, or if somebody has to leave early, we have several of his books up here. How to Travel Safely and Come Home Alive. So these are books here that he has done a lot of traveling naturally, and he has put all that together. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, my broadcast partner and safety guru, Sensei Hart.
Hello, how you doing today? I hope everybody can hear me because this microphone is not what I want to hold on to. You're going to see me be moving and grooving. First of all, again, if you know anything about martial arts, everybody thinks about it as fighting. Fighting, you see all the fighting on TV. Every time you go to the movies, would you like to see somebody talk it out? Oh, yes, sir. You know what I mean? I'm sorry I'm stepping on your toe. Or would you like to get that $14 worth and see some bam, boom, pop? That's why we go to the movies. But reality, fighting, as it goes, was something I had to learn about the hard way. You look at the person who used to be a Jehovah's Witness. Young, lived in North St. Louis, South Side, projects, everywhere. We accidentally left at nighttime before the rent was due. That's why we kept moving around. I used to watch people. I'd knock on the doors, and I would watch out on the way, and people would chase me out. As I got older, people started getting meaner to me. They would do...
Kind of hard to hear you in the back.
Can you hear me in the back?
No.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Anyway, I would go to these doors and work and try to sell these magazines. It got old. Very old, real fast. And what happened was, as older you get, the more things start happening to you. One day, I decided, I got to see somebody, Bruce Lee, on the Green Hornet. You ever mean the Green Hornet? Yes. I had this little idea. If he can do it, I can do it. But while I was doing these things, guess who else is my hero? Batman. Now, if you ever been in the old neighborhood of Batman, the old Batman, Adam West, and you got a young little black kid who puts on a big white helmet, puts a cape on, and runs around the neighborhood like Batman, and in my mind I kept on hearing, dun, 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 dun. Everywhere I go, the people would laugh at me, and once I got in the fight, I thought people were going to line around me in a circle and fight me one at a time. Did not work. As soon as I heard it, dun, 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 bam! And then I was getting the bam, bam kick hit, so that started running. What happened was, down to that time, I was always getting bullied, pushed around. I was trying to be the nice guy, because my mother would say, you got to be nice. You're Jehovah's Witness. Speak your way out. So she'd always give me a a Bible verse to tell the people. And as I'm saying this verse and running, people are laughing at me, so I knew it was going to work. You know, I remember the last one that went over the hill. It was Deuteronomy, and I'll never forget some running as they're laughing at me. I'm trying to get these words out. My mother said, "Son, you didn't say the whole thing right. You got to stop, and you got to say it." So that was over. One day, I tell you what was the end. I saw this guy, two guys were messing with their brothers. We was in our backyard, 3 steps. I saw them doing whatever they were to me, and I said, I'm coming to get them. As I stepped down the steps, 2 steps down, I heard a crash. I looked around, looked up. This guy tried to drop a tricycle on my head from upstairs. Wasn't one of those little big wheels they make, not little plastic babies. No, it was one of those big, strong, steel bikes. They used to make them very well back in the 60s. And they came down crashing on me. I was petrified. I didn't know what to do, because I was like, I realized I can get hurt. Now don't think about this. I was so mad, I went in the house, 11 years old, I knew all the guns were. I looked around, went to the guns, I'll never forget, looking at the guns, and my dad said, if anybody comes in the house, we live in neighborhoods where you had to just handle business. Police always come 30 minutes after everything happened. The only thing that saved me was, what does Batman not do? What would he not use?
A gun.
A gun. That's the only thing that probably had me here today, because I was so mad. I was about ready to get that gun. But guess what else was there? A knife. Hunting knife. Heart. Crazy, mad. I walked outside, saw that guy, and I came after him cursing, and he saw me. He looked like Psycho Part 3. He was running down the street, everybody was laughing. Well, guess who was coming up the street? My mother. Poor mother. Coming from the grocery store, you know, her lovely kids, Jehovah's Witnesses, oh, so nice. I was spewing every kind of word in the book. And I was after this dude. You can see this guy, he was gone, but he had shifted in 3rd gear. He was gone. So as he hit the corner, I come to the corner with him. He was gone. He had left me about 2 blocks. I came back up. I was breathing. My mother was there. I had the knife in my hand. You know, I walked in, and that's when it all started. I said, you know, I'm going to learn martial arts. I would go to every school I could. They used to turn us away back in the day. In the 60s, they just wouldn't let me in the schools. I was persistent. Within a short amount of time, I found a sensei who took me in. So I started being the best. Within that time period, 14, I said I was going to be the best. And within that 6 years, I was a world champion because I believed in myself. And if my sensei had not given me that power and given me that drive to do it, I wouldn't be here now. I say that because I thought it was all about fighting. Fighting is what martial arts is about. So as I started going around the world, I started realizing we have to learn how to speak ourselves. Speak to people, talk to people, and handle your situation right. So what Gary B and I are going to do today, we're going to kind of talk about awareness and how to deal with those things. So this is what I'm here for today. Gary B, would you please start?
Very good. Pretty entertaining. And I tell you, I broadcast a radio show, as I mentioned, every Saturday with him. And he doesn't stop. And it's hard for me to conduct my conversation on the radio without laughing as much as he does. But he brings together a lot of great points. And again, we're going to break this up into 3 segments here. Our first segment is going to be awareness. After this segment, we'll go for about 20 minutes. After this segment, if you want to ask a question or make a comment, don't hesitate to ask, and then we'll go to the next segment. Again, the first segment, awareness. Special values, your responsibilities, communication mistakes, and physical boundaries.
Okay. Here's what we'll be talking about safety as a whole today. But first of all, we got to understand, here's what most people have done in the past. How many times have you seen the news? Something's happened to somebody else, a robbery over here, a break-in over here, a woman gets snatched over here, but we tend to cut it off in our mind because we don't want to deal with that. We, as adults and human beings, we don't want bad things to happen. We even look on the TV, we watch the movies, we see the bad things, and we realize, guess what? Can it happen to us? But then we put it out of our mind real fast. That's what we call denial. And if you're going to be able to take care of yourself and protect yourself, because times have changed. I'm sure you've heard things happening. I'm sure you watch all the crimes going on, not just in our city, but everywhere. When I was traveling around the world, I noticed one thing real fast, and that's what made me, one of the reasons I wrote this book, is that crime happens everywhere. And it happened a lot more in other countries. I was held captive in Bangkok for a couple weeks. They would not let me out of jail. They would not let me out of the country. They said they locked me up if I didn't do certain things. I probably had a fight in every country I've been to at one time or another. Not because I tried to do it, but I had to deal with things. What happened was I learned that, you know what, I better learn how to start talking. This fighting, I'm getting older now. I have to quit doing this. So, my wife, she'll come out here, she'll start stuff right away. What? She'll come in on you, but she got that St. Louis attitude. But I said, you got to learn how to be, conduct yourself, and you got to be able to have confidence in who you are. So at a young age, I started meeting people, and I realized my fighting was not going to get me everywhere. I got to learn how to conduct myself in a better way. So I'm going back to you with this. Denial is something that we have. We have to sort of realize how we're going to deal with it a different way. First thing is first. Gary B., what is denial?
I think it's a river somewhere.
In Egypt. That's where it is. That's the only thing they know when you tell them. So we have to understand, once we decide that we're going to take care of ourselves and get the responsibility, that's hard to do because a lot of people don't know. What shall we do? I'm sure each and every one of you are God-fearing people. You believe in doing the best things for people. But unfortunately, the bad guys out there, they're not like that. They look at you and they take advantage of you. So what we have to do is kind of at least educate yourself. Once you educate yourself to what you do and who you are, you'll be able to handle the situation. First thing you do, of course, is understand why people do what they do. Most criminals, when they do stuff, and we're saying criminals in terms of why they pick on people. They don't go after the strong people. As I said before, if you ever watch a herd of antelope and stuff, you see one of the animal channels where the cheetah or the lion is waiting, he just swaying, oh yeah, I'm gonna get me somebody today. Which one you gonna get? He don't go after the antelope who's lifting weights and stuff, and taking karate and stuff. He don't go after them, he goes after the one sitting back looking at TV. That antelope, the one who's weak and the one who ain't doing anything, that's just like the criminal element. They look for the weak and those who are not aware. And awareness is a very important part of it. So part of what we're going to show today is to let you know 90% of this is awareness, being aware and accepting the fact that it can happen and it will happen if you're not careful. And I'm not trying to make anybody feel, uh-oh, you're just trying to trick us. No, it's not going to happen to us. And I hear that all the time because people don't want to believe it. Accept the fact that it can happen. But don't be afraid about it. Just educate yourself. And not just you, though, but your youngsters, the youngsters out there today. Our kids, they have their own special problems. Young ladies and women, they have their own challenges. And we're not going to go into specifics of everything, but we're going to let you know how the dynamics of it start. So as a guy who's looking for somebody to take advantage of, I'm going to look at you, and I'm going to look at a couple of things. A, your body language. Body language is very important. If you are a kind of person who don't pay attention, you won't think about it, but we have certain mannerisms we do. First and foremost, if I was going to go after you, and here's what I've done. One of the things I've learned being in my neck of the woods, I've gone to all the guys who are good criminals. When I say that, because they're still out of jail. The bad criminals in jail. I'm not going to learn from you, but unfortunately, this is one thing that's true. Most people go to prison, they learn new things when they get out. If they get out, they got a whole new group of things they can teach you. I'll get you next time. I'll get in your house next time, Park. Don't worry. And I'll be saying, I'm waiting for you. So people who out there, they look at, first and foremost, how you walk and how you carry yourself. I know it doesn't sound much to you, but walking and carrying yourself a certain way, that makes a big difference when somebody's thinking about doing you wrong. If you're doing it, looking down, that tells a lot. Now, guess what? The guy who does this, yo, dog, I'm here, brother. He's all loud and stuff. He wants everybody to know. He could be overcompensating. But guess what? People don't mess with what? Crazy. People don't mess with crazy people. Only other crazy people mess with crazy people. So that's what you have to understand. That's why they do what they do. Sometimes they overcompensate, but it doesn't matter. You got to decide what's important to you, but you got to do it. It takes a habit to walk a certain way. Eye contact. How many people of you have looked at people who are menacing and mean? And do you look in their face? Not relatives, though. I got some uncle, my uncle Otis. He got a big old forehead, and I just can't give eye contact. I'm afraid. I'm afraid to look him in the eye because I think he's gonna attack. I don't know what it is about that big old head. But eye contact is so important. People are doing that. So remember, the bad guys are doing that. They will test you out. They will see how you handle yourself. Another thing you do, how you speak. If somebody says, hey, you got the time? Or do you know this place that you said, I don't know what to do. Ain't gonna work. But again, you can't go, women, ladies, what do you want, fool? Get out of my face! What? Huh? Punch him his head like this. Ooh, sorry. It's the chief of police. Yes, you don't want to do that either. So all these things happen not by luck. You have to practice. That means you have to have confidence in yourself. So the way you walk, the way you carry yourself, the way you do, all these things are an important part of safety. And that's just the first part of it because, again, you only can do what you know. If you don't know anything, before I learned, I got out of my neighborhood, I dealt with things a certain way. You know, I was a fighter. If you ever see most fighters, and it's not their fault, but it's just the way it is, they have that swagger, that attitude, because that's their main thing in life. Even when they're out of the ring or they're acting tough and all that. Now, I tried to cool it down, but it's very hard to do when that's all you know. Everything goes back to me. I'm the greatest. You know, that's all I knew until I started doing one thing. I was taught, a person who was smart enough to know, but know me well, he said, here, he gave me a book. How to Win Friends and Influence People. Now, that's an old school book. I know most of you don't know about that, but it was Dale Carnegie book. My first book, I looked at it. I said, what am I going to do with this? He said, this will help you. Read the book. Didn't get it at first, but as I started growing and started traveling and started doing things, it gave me the skill. So that's how I kind of started out with conflict resolution. I realized if I can do one thing, I can do the next thing. So with that being said, I said, okay, I'm going to learn how to handle people a different way than just with these and these. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm going to tell y'all now. That's all I did on the streets. My neighborhood, I used to fight. Before I was even in a world champion, once I learned how to fight, the problem I overcompensated. You want to fight? Yes, let's fight. We said, what time? 2 o'clock, I see you. I lined up fights every day. Because we didn't get in trouble back then. In my neighborhood, you just didn't get in trouble. No one come looking for it. I lived across the street from a park. That was Thunderdome. Only thing wasn't there was Tina Turner. She wasn't there, for those who know Thunderdome. But I would fight all the time, never got in trouble. It was my way of doing things. And then I started to learn. And then the more I learned not to fight, the people who come to me to fight, I had to learn how to talk to them not to fight, because I'm the one that said I'm the best. So that is what we're talking about with awareness. We're kind of setting things up to let you know. You have to have the skills to do it. You got to be confident who you are. But by the same token, you got to realize that people are going to be watching you. And awareness alone will help you, but that's just a start. Gary? Thank you.
Again, awareness, being aware of your situation. And again, Sensei Hart had touched upon, again, the special values, your responsibilities on what you should do. Also communication mistakes, being too flamboyant, as Sensei Hart had mentioned, and also the physical boundaries. If you're not a big person, you have to act differently. Any comments or questions on the first segment there that we might have, that you may have on that concerning awareness? Yes, sir.
I used to teach school in a school that was, well, it started out 10% black and it ended up 90% black while I was teaching there. And some of the teachers got caught by the pay system, and they couldn't leave that school district, although they didn't like black kids. And you could tell as soon as a kid walked into the room and one of these teachers who didn't like black kids, they knew it right away. And then they acted out according to the expectations that teacher had. Whereas a teacher, like myself, I didn't care. They were kids. And they walked into the room, I treated them like kids and students and human beings, and I had a whole lot less trouble because of the expectations. And the same way, you've got these people that might look aggressive and whatnot. If you treat them with respect and you talk to them calmly, I think that's the point.
Thank you very much for that. I know what you mean, because when I was in school, started out, like you said, it was 10%, black, 90%
Could
white.
it be Normandy?
No, it was Wyman School, which was in the city, and it changed drastically by the time I was in high school. And the reason I'm saying that, because the guys that thought I was a wuss in grade school, by the time I got to high school with them, I wore them out. You know, they thought I was the same person I was then. It started because I wasn't trying to do stuff, but you had to deal with your stuff. And of course, in a social setting like that, you got to do what you got to do. And the first time I went there, guys, you just thought I was the same guy, Jehovah's Witness. I couldn't fight. I ended up with 4 guys in the football team in the hall. My first week there. So you know, they thought I was crazy. And then I had to go that ranting. Of course, you know, you act crazy, don't mess with crazy. So that's how it was. But speaking about what we're talking as far as one thing we all have, I don't care if you can fight, not fight, whatever, we all have fear. Fear is something that is normal. It's how you control it. I've walked into the ring many times, and I've had to go to other people's hometowns around the world. Wherever I go, people are ranting, they want to kill me, and they're going to cut me up, and they've said everything possible. When I walk out to that ring to fight someone, I got to be ready. And so what you do is you learn how to do that. That's why fear is something that can be controlled through training, whatever it is you do. Same thing with self-defense we're talking about. We have what you call the fight, flight, or freeze. You've ever heard it before. Most people, when they get, you know, boom, that adrenaline hits you, that adrenaline rush. Well, since the days of the cavemen, they used to fight, they used to duel, take somebody else's woman, go to the cave, take her, drag her back, all that. Or the woman did them. If they were in the hood, the woman do that. Now where you are. The sister, boy, she'd grab her sister, come here. Mess up my fro. Ain't got no afro sheets. What's wrong with you? So fight, flight, or freeze. You gotta understand that. Once you understand it, it's not scary. One thing to have fear. It's another thing to be afraid. When you're afraid, it's because you're not prepared for something. You don't know anything. The fear is normal. It keeps us from getting run over in the streets. It keeps us from doing crazy things, which sometimes that doesn't work, because I've seen people do it anyway. The other thing is freeze. How many times somebody started you just for boom, because you don't know what to do. That same thing applies to anything that goes on from a situation like you hear gunshots or whatever it is that you do. You hear, if most people stop and they startle, instead of saying, hey, I got to do something about this, they stand there and they just look at it because they're in denial. Back to that word again, Gary. Okay, one thing about that is you can train yourself not to have to deal with that as soon as it happens, because when I train self-defense, it's different than I train people when they fight. I teach you how to, I startle you. I do all kinds of things that make things happen to you to make you used to it. You still got to go into your frame of mind, your reference to fight. And that's what you do in self-defense. Teach women that too. Once something happens, doesn't matter if it's, somebody trying to kick in your door. People do that, or you sort of have to deal with a situation going to the parking lot. You have to react right away. That comes from training. If you don't do it, the chances of you being successful at it is going to be slight to none the longer you wait. So that's why it does not pay to talk to people. Somebody's going to do something to you, you see they're going to do it, don't wait around for it. Do something, because once you go to that certain point, there's nothing you can do about it but take care of yourself. Here's what it is, awareness. There's a color code, and the best way I can say that, you got to understand when to do that. There's a guy named Jeff Cooper from the U.S. Army who had a code of awareness. He called it the color code, which is first white. White is if you're in the house, you're chilling, you ain't worried about anything. Once you go out of that house, you're in yellow. That means you got to be aware of what's going on. You're not really worried about it, but you see it, and it's just like anything else. You got to pay attention. Orange is you see something going down, but it's not part of you. You know it's there, and you got to be aware of it. Red is when it's coming to you. It hasn't started yet, but you know something can't happen. And black is when it actually happens. You got to train yourself to do these things so you can aware. Because under stress, again, you won't think about it. If you don't practice it now, you won't do it. And that's why it's important to put yourself in certain types of situations where you will have to know, what would I do if? And this is hard to do. Ask yourself, what would I do if someone came up to my car? Think about that. And I'm going to say it, a lady, so then I say a man. What would you do if a man was walking up to you and you don't know what it's about, but you got to do something? Think about that for a second. No one wants to think about the worst things. Some people say, okay, I'll jump in my car. And I go, no, he'll be on you before you get to your car. I will run the other way. No, well, you got to think about these. Because if you don't think about it now, it won't happen. That's just how it is. And I always think about the worst. I know I'm crazy. People say, boy, you crazy. I always sit up and think the worst case scenario. If Bobo came at me with a nightstick, and I'm laying down on the hammock out in the park, and I'm just thinking all these crazy things in my mind, because that's how I do. That's how I work. I mean, I wasn't afraid of violence. I would do crazy things because that's all. I was expected to do it. Now, I grew up and I said, do I want to live? That's the main thing. I didn't want to entertain myself anymore. I wanted to live. So you have to think about it in terms of what it is you would do if something goes down for you. And that's hard to do. And again, that takes training, and you'll get with the right people and they will show you how to do that. So part of that, it will be you deciding how you will handle something. And then what will be the answers to it, and you will have to give yourself time to think about it. Now, if you have kids, the same thing applies to kids. It's hard for you to teach your kids. It's very hard. I'm sure you all understand that. You have to get somebody to do the same things. But if you want your kids to be safe out there, I found that one of the worst things you can do is send your kids off to college, but not prepare them for the things they're going to deal with. You're going to be dealing with people of all walks of life. And I tell people this all the time. You spend too much time protecting your kids, and when they go out in the real world, they don't know what to expect. So you got to prepare them for what's going on out there. And I believe that most wholeheartedly, because what goes on in college, it's a whole new ballgame. And you got to at least let them know what's going on. Gary?
First line of defense is awareness. The second line of defense, assessment and avoidance. We're going to talk about aware of your surroundings, trusting your instinct, and also layers of security. We're going to do a little role play here as we go throughout segment number 2 here, so we'll kind of give you an idea on how things are going about. For those of you who need to leave early and still would like to get a book, How to Travel Safely and Come Home Alive, Martina can help you out there if you have to leave early. Sensei?
Yes. We're going to get some examples, and I need to get this off of my hand. Well, I can hold this, but we're going to show you some examples of boundary setting. And I know it's very basic, you don't think about it, but it's important because it's the process you do to teach yourself how to see things. Think about safety like driving a car. I'm sure y'all drive. The best thing you get to remember is, remember when you first got in the car, and they would teach you how to drive. You had to use the steering wheel, you had to press on the gas, you had to hit the brake, you were just doing all these things at once. But you were like thinking, you were all worried, I'll never get this, but then little by little it happened. Okay, pretty soon, what you realize is, driving, gas, brake, you gotta know when, you gotta look at your mirrors, make sure nobody's around. Something comes out in front of, boom, you hit the brake. All these things, it's the same thing happens with safety. First, it's something that's gonna be in your brain, consciously. Then as you get used to it, it becomes subconsciously. You don't think about it anymore because you know how it does. And it's easy. It's easy to do. I see things totally different. I can see things that are going on all the time because that's what I do. But I was doing that a long time ago. We were at a very young age. We knew, I'm sure you heard and I'm not bragging, but that's how it is. We knew the cars coming down, coming back, and be shooting at you. In our neighborhood, they used to shoot. They used to do everything. So we knew the young kids today, they do the same thing. They know what's going to be a drive-by. They know how to get down behind the cars. When I was young, there used to be guns going off, and we learned how to stay down below because it was a brick wall. There was only 22, so they weren't strong, but we could not stand up. We had to crawl into the bathroom and get into the tub because it was cast iron tub. We used to get in there, and people would say, well, I tell them that now, they laugh. I said, no, that's how we stay safe. That's just the reality of it. And that's what I had to do, and that's how I learned. So I'm not afraid to tell people, there's two sides of everything. I wasn't just the superhero, dashing man who always, I was scared half the time because I didn't know what, but I learned how to deal with it, and that's the way it is. We have to make decisions, just like in this real world. Do we get so worried about what's going on that we don't do anything in the world, just not enjoy life, or do we learn the proper techniques, principles, and then just go on by our business, because that's how it is. You want to enjoy your life. Come here, my man. We're going to give you an example. Space. I know y'all, we take it for granted, personal space. Now, in a social setting, of course, anywhere around area 360, that's all right. We're talking, we're rapping, he's rapping to somebody, talk to your girl. Talk to your girl. We'll talk to her.
Talking to her.
Yo, baby, what's up? Come on, you gotta be talking some stuff. Yeah, baby, what's up? Okay, now guess what? Once we get a little closer, count on where you are. Now, if I'm closer to him in the social setting, I may somebody pay attention to him. But if we're in a social setting downtown the riverfront and there's stuff going on, you're gonna pay more attention. Why? Now, what kind of crimes can happen right here? That people don't know about: pickpocketing, snatching, taking something from you, coming from behind, mugging you. Now, even in a crowd, don't think it can't happen. I've seen people do crazy things in crowds. Now, once we get a little closer and personal, you know, this is when you really got to pay attention. Now, male or female, doesn't matter. When you're out in the public, you got to pay attention, count on who you're dealing with. Now, of course, 2 feet and closer. It's there you go. It's intimate space. I say that because, turn around. The same thing happens here. What do? Do you pay attention to what's going on around you? Most people don't. They've gotten so lax that they don't do it. You got to pay attention, back around, to what's going on around you, because once it happens, here's what you read. Me, if I'm going to do something to him, here's what I'm looking at. I'm going to look at him and decide right off the bat, can I do something to him? If I've gotten this far, I know I can do something. Now, if he starts talking to me, okay, yeah, yeah. Now see, that doesn't do anything. Now here's what happens now. Go. Sir, go back. See now, get back. I don't know what's wrong with you, son, but you better back off. Say that. Blah, 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 blah. No. Here's what happens. What you got first? What's the first thing they see after your body? Voice. Now, what you got to do is what I said. When people are about to get into something, you don't want to get them, well, gee whiz, I expect you should not come to me now because it's against the law, and you know the law is everything. And I have lawyers, and I will do it. He's beating your head in. Here's what you got to realize. When it's time to get down, you're jacked up. Long sentences and stuff don't work to this guy because he's jacked up too. So you got to say short sentences. Stop. Halt. What happens is it's impossible to think of 2 things at one time. It will shorten you out. Just remember when I did that, what happened that split second? Boom. I know it sounds weird, but if you say little words, stop, halt, back off, whatever, they'll think about the short term, but it will at least stop them. It makes people do different things. I've done things, said stuff to people, and they've stopped. You know, they always stop for a second, and then that's all I had to do. I've said stuff to people, they stop, and then they continue on. I got to wear them out. I got to give them a shoe shine. You know, so different things to different people, but you need distractions. That same thing, if he came here, I said, stop, and he comes in, come on in. He comes in, boom, I go right in his eyes. What's going to happen? See, I'm not going Bruce Lee on him. I'm not going to go Bruce Lee. I ain't got time for that. Real self-defense is quick, sharp, and sweet. I've done that quick. I remember I went to impress girls when I was young. I would get into a guy, I'd jump, ooh, I was all kind of, I'd kick him all upside the head, I'd part his hair, I'd kick him, oh, everything. Then I said, one day I said, you know, fighting is hard. Then one day somebody said something, did something to me, and I just took my thumb and ran it in the eye of her face. Guess what? Fight was over. And I know it sounds weird, but that's how self-defense is. It's not about, you know, looking good. It's very basic. And you have to have all the tools. The tools of speaking and showing confidence, all that comes together. The more you can do this and you understand human nature, the better it is for you. Now, we'll break these down to different situations because you have to understand everything is different. You would deal different if he knocked on my door, bang, bang, bang. Here's what people do. I've seen it. I live out in West County, so I know. First of all, the door is not locked. Most of the doors not locked. I'm going to tell you this for real. I'm still appalled when people do that. Number 2, if he does knock on the door, boom, boom, he got a patch on his eye. He got he like a pirate. He got one wooden leg. He comes up here, and you open the door. Hi, how may I help you? You don't open the door just because somebody knocks on your door. See, that's what people don't understand. People don't want to be embarrassed. They say, oh, if I want to embarrass myself. I don't want to feel, you know, I can't do that. Yeah? And you're out in the public, I tell, especially women, don't be worried about hurting somebody's feelings. You know, somebody come up to you, act a fool, say something, you got to get in their face. You got to tell them something right away. I'm not saying going crazy, ghetto on them. I'm saying you got to let them know that you're assertive, You are not afraid of them with eye contact. We're going back to that again. And say what you got to say, because most people, again, they don't want to mess with people who are willing to stand up and say what they got to say. So this thing, he knocks on the door, the first line of defense of your house is your door. If you just open the door, that's how a lot of the home invasions start. People just open the door, people bomb rush them. The thing is, they have checked you out. When people come to your home, for instance, they know what they're doing. They've scouted you out. They know who's in there. They know what you got in terms of you got some type of value. So you got to think about this. Your house, for instance, is the first thing you're around a lot. You have to lock the doors. You have to get the windows. You need to have adequate security in terms of alarm systems and things like that. But you also got to have common sense. You can't rely on that by itself. And I say that because that's another thing you have to deal with. Once that first line of defense goes off, if your alarm goes off, for instance, that means somebody's coming in. Well, suppose it was the wind. First time you call back and tell them, they said, no, it was nothing. Then guess what? You hear it a couple of times, pretty soon it becomes the same thing. What you don't want to do is get complacent when these things happen. That means you have to, every time you got to treat it with respect. That means also everybody in your family has to have a plan. If you don't have an alarm system, do you ever gone with your family members and say, well, here's what we do in case the alarm goes off? That's important, because if you don't, when it goes down, you don't know, people are running around like the Keystone Cops. So you got to have a plan, even with your kids. Another thing you have to do is have a safe room. Okay? And along with that, your cell phone works for you for a reason. But you don't rely on it by itself, but yes, it is 911. You need to get somebody there, but as we go along, we're gonna talk to you about what it takes. You can't depend on other people, you gotta do yourself. So your self-defense and the way you carry yourself is all about this, the knowledge. Your knowledge is only there if you decide to learn and do it right. If you can't do that, then you're just wishing and hoping for the best. And for your sake, I would not want to do that, because I know how it is out there. I understand, I enjoy my family. I want to spend time with my family. I like going out and I like people. I love being around people, but there are always a few things, a few people out there who will try to take advantage of you. Sometimes people do take niceness as a weakness. I see it all the time, because no one knows who I am. I'm very nice to them. You can see that little, And I said, don't go there, buddy. Don't you go there. So I know what it is, and I know how this fear is something a lot of people are afraid of. They don't know what to do. A lot of people will not admit they're afraid. The best thing you can do, even if you don't want to admit it, is still take the time to say, how can I make my life better in terms of safety and security? And that's what I would say at this time, as far as, learning how to do this, okay?
Very good, Sensei. I'm glad you didn't put your finger into my eye.
It was the little finger.
A little finger, okay. Assessment, and again, avoidance, being aware of your surroundings, trusting your instincts, layer of security. That was segment 2. Any particular questions or comments on that particular segment? Yes, sir, in the back.
Yeah, I noticed that sometimes when I go to ATMs out in the city, I'll look behind me and I might see someone that was looking at me and he'll look away. And I was wondering, just because you take away the element of surprise, does that necessarily turn them off of what they might have wanted to do?
Well, if you say the element of surprise, the fact that you're there, you know that they're there, that doesn't always work. But here's the deal. Most of the time when people take chances, reckless chances, for instance, was it daytime or nighttime you said? I'm sorry. Was it nighttime or daytime?
I've done it both times.
Okay, here's the deal. Most people who are desperate, they either got a drug habit, they're drunk, there's something going on there. There's psychiatric help, they need psychiatric help. They're not rational. And we're not even talking about those kind of people, but I'm letting you know, you can't underestimate anyone, because there are people out there who will just take chances, just go do stupid things. So what I would say is, from something like that, you would like to go at a time, of course, daytime. That doesn't always mean that it's the most safest, but you also want to say, if you feel that there's somebody around, you may not want to go there again. Or go do it right at that time. You may want to wait. And there's no opportune time, but you still have to say, is it worth it for me to go do this and deal with this situation? That's how I deal with situations. I look at it, my mind is always 3 or 4 steps ahead when I do stuff now, because I just see it, it's normal. I know people may say, oh, that's paranoid. It's not, I'm still here, aren't I? I'm not running around paranoid, I'm enjoying my life. But I understand people, and I'm not underestimating anyone. And I'm not overestimating myself. I know I can fight. I know that. I know how to use weapons, I know that, but still, I'm scared. I am scared all the time. Why? Because it keeps me safe. And not the kind of like fear, but I'm always respectful scared because I'm not gonna underestimate anyone. That's why I'm still here. That's why I keep my clients safe who I bodyguard. That's why I teach people, you know, all of my people who teach them, I teach them, they're doing fine because I don't ever come up saying, you know, you do this, you can whoop them up. My first thing is to teach people how to get away every time. To get away, if it's all, so if you can prevent things from happening, that's the best way to do it, okay?
Any other comments? There's another comment, sir?
Yeah, more of a comment than a question, and you said it a couple of times, and you're not afraid to fight, and you know how to fight. All this is good common sense and makes all kinds of logic. But to be confident, to be secure, and to be aware, if you can't back that up, you're looking at a guy in the eye or your body language, if you don't have the expertise that you have to back it up, it's a whole different story. I mean, you can be as secure or as confident as you want, but if this person doesn't back down, you only take it up to a point, and then you don't have the training to back it up. Ultimately, the ego continues to come at you. Right?
Well, here's the thing. That's why I'm here to give you the options. I can tell you how to invest your money if I was an investor, what different ways to make money. I can tell you how to do that. I'm a mechanic. I can tell you how to get your car fixed and all that. But if you don't do it, it don't matter. What I'm here to do is say, here are your options. I have a lot of students from different walks of life. I have some who are, who probably are impaired. I've had blind students. I've had every walk of life. And just the fact they've taken the step to take care of themselves and have the knowledge, that's 90% of it. This is what the seminar is about, to be able to understand what you need to do. Because how many people have you heard come up to you and talk the way I'm talking about this? Who has the expertise? And there's a lot of guys who in the neighborhood be breaking popsicle sticks. Yeah! And they think they're tough. And most karate guys, and this is why I love martial arts, I've been in all my life. Most martial artists don't know how to do self-defense. It's a difference. They can teach you how to go to karate tournaments. They can teach you how to jump kick and kick boards and all that. But if you have not been around violence and understand how people react and do things, you're not going to know unless you, A, been through it, or B, has trained through it. There's people who train. That's what I do. I train people how to look for these type of things. It'd be the same thing. Would you get Mike Tyson to teach your kids boxing? Would you have kids? Would you want Mike Tyson to teach your kids boxing? You know who Mike Tyson is?
Yeah.
Yeah, you think he's a good teacher?
I don't think he's a good teacher.
No, okay, that's what I'm saying. Not everybody can fight, can teach. I know how to teach because that was always a love of mine. Self-defense is nothing that I can take anybody. Teach them how to be better. It's up to you, the individual, how much you train it. I did it. I was a fanatic about it. That's all I did. It was my way of life. If I had done that, I'd be dead now. I know that. If I had not done martial arts. So as I grew up as an adult, people hire me because they want me to teach them. And these are people with lots of money and everything else. They finally say, hey, here's what I want to know. Now, they'll never be able to be like me, but they're going to be the best they can be. And it's an ongoing learning session. Okay, that's how that goes. Thank you.
I think that's a great comment because I'm sorry, there's another question in the back. Go ahead.
Martial arts and defense. What's your opinion about parenting?
In our next segment, we're going to discuss that. So that's a perfect lead into the next segment. And again, the action on what you do. Again, somebody approached me or somebody approached Martina, we would approach or we would go after an individual a different way. And our next segment, segment 3, is action. So that's going to be answered here in this segment in more detail here with Sensei Hart. Again, action, having a plan. Also self-defense, and then aftermath. Again, in your particular situation, when you talk about a gun, Sensei Hart will go into a lot more detail concerning that. And again, I do appreciate the teacher comment. I forgot to say thank you very much at first segment, sir. Again, segment 3, action, have a plan, self-defense.
Okay, when we talk about self-defense, again, I'm going back to the situation. I'm sure you've seen all the local karate schools. They're in neighborhoods all over the country, and they're good. I think they're good for what they are. I love MMA too, so don't think I don't, but I think MMA is all about fighting. I don't think kids should go into MMA by itself unless that instructor knows how to teach the values of martial arts. And the only way you can really do that is get some structure. I think putting on the uniform and everybody bowing and showing respect, all these things are so important for our kids, because if we just teach them how to fight, when they get older, they don't have anything else to back it up but fighting, which I spoke about. Now, I started fighting, I did it for a different reason, but the martial arts is what gave me the structure, to be the best I can be, and it's taught me how to be the best, a better person. And back then, race relations were not the same. I'm telling you right now, I walked in high school and they'd shoo me away in the late 60s as a kid. I had an instructor who happened to be white. He brought me in, he taught me how to be the best I can be. And because of that, I never had a problem with a few racist situations I ran into, because I was everywhere and I got to do everything, and from all people, all walks of life, because of the martial arts. So I say this because when people say, I tell them martial arts is not something to get mad, to get offended. I said there's a difference. So martial arts was done from the ancient times. It's still good for kids. I believe it's good structure. Anybody wants to work out, because when you work out, you feel better about yourself. The training is great. Tournament fighting is not the same as self-defense. So if a martial arts instructor understands self-defense, and he teaches that along with his martial arts, then that's great. That is a great thing, because fights don't start bowing, touching gloves. People are not honorable. They are not honorable. You do this, bam! Oh. They in your pockets, Jack. So you have to be realistic about that. And I try to tell instructors, you have to continue to develop. The awareness skills that I have, and I learn from experience. I used to bodyguard people all the time, and my job was to keep them out of trouble, not to fight. Somebody come up and do it. You can't do fighting, you gotta be aware. Most guys talk, I'm gonna chop him here, I'm gonna break his arm, I'm gonna do all this stuff. See, can't do that, and we'll tell you why. So martial arts is great for training. Martial arts is great for taking care, showing kids how to focus and give themselves the ability to do what they gotta do. It gives them some guidelines, and that instructor is an important part of it, okay? So that's what we're gonna be doing. We're gonna talk about that a little bit. Here, you have anything else before we start? Okay, here's what it is. Take anything you want to help you work out. Tai Chi, martial art, any kind of martial arts is good for you. It's a good start. Most people are afraid to start. That's what I'm telling you. I know a lot of people say, I would like to start it, but I don't know. Because if they're in a high position in their life, they don't like to be told what to do. They feel embarrassed about having somebody else be the boss, per se. And it's not about that. You don't look at it that way. You need to have martial arts training. That martial arts training should have something to do with awareness and self-defense. It should be very basic. It's not fancy stuff. Self-defense is not fancy. I've seen more guys get into fights who are good karate guys. When the real fight happened, it was sloppy. They didn't have good technique because they didn't train it right. So self-defense as a whole has to be done very basic. It should be where anyone you can go in, I can teach you and adapt you to how to learn. Because it's not just about the empty hand, it's about weapons of convenience. When I go around, I look at things, I look at it from a different perspective. I can take this book and wear you out with it in 100 different ways because I understand that, I do that. Anything can be a weapon if you look at it accordingly. So I've done that. I've seen guys who get in fights, guy throw coins in his face. Oh, then he jumps on them. Boom, boom. The best thing I ever seen was I was at the UFC Ultimate Fighting Championships. When it first came out, I almost fought in it. I wasn't retired, but I was so well known. They were going to get a well-known kickboxer in there, and they were talking to me about it. So they brought me in, and after the fights, there was a guy sitting down with this girl, and in the booth, 2 girls on one side, the girl on the other side, him. Now he had won several fights, so he was styling. Person brought a pizza in. The lady brought the pizza in. Well, this guy real skinny guy comes over, and he starts arguing with, hollering at the guy in the booth who had just fought. He think the place is crowded. He didn't even pay any attention to this guy. This guy threw a jacket over his head. Boom. Rolled him out. Bam! He couldn't get out the booth. Women were flying. Pizza was flying everywhere. He took that pan. He hit this guy with it. They had to break the fight up. And he was embarrassed because the little guy beat him. And he just was on Ultimate Fighter. He was on TV looking good. He got whooped by a 140-pound guy. And what I'm telling you is awareness, not how tough you are, it's using your head. I like that. I looked, ooh, that was good. I was like, wow. And this guy was sitting there, all of a sudden his chest puffed up. Yeah, I whoop anybody, and he go in there and he'll get killed. But guess what? It's not how good you are when you fight. Fight smart. And that's what it's about. So empty hand fighting doesn't have to be real, real fancy. You don't have to be an MMA fighter. You just learn basic self-defense. You learn how to use weapons of convenience. It could be a pen. It could be using coins as, something to throw in people's face. Anything. You have to look at that. That's how you think. Next thing on the thing will be, I'm going to tell you about is there's things out there. Pepper spray, stun guns, knives, anything that gets you thinking self-defense is good, but you got to be trained with it. And I'm not advocating or anything. I'm just telling you the reality of it. Because there's a lot of old dudes, old school guys in my hood, when I was coming up, they all carried razors. And they be ready to fight, but guess what? They almost cut themselves once they cut each other. So it wasn't about that. You better know how to use the weapon that you have. When I grew up, knives were the common. People got to fight all the time. They use knives. Then guns come into play. A lot of people carry guns for self-defense. And I say, yes, if that's what you're trained for and you legally have it, that's your right. I'm not going to say it's right or wrong. But one thing I know, if you depend on one weapon too much, it could be a detriment because you got to have a multitude of things. Suppose you can't get to the gun. Suppose somebody rush you and you try to get the gun, it falls down. Supposing the gun misfired. There's a million things. You have to have the empty hand. You got to have use other weapons. You got to be creative. But guess what's the best weapon? It's this, the mind. The mind. That's why you do several things at once. Over the years, I've learned this. Nothing ever happens the way you think it's going to happen. You got to think of 100 ways it can go wrong. That's how I always train fights. That's how I always did my life. I mean, any way you do it, no one way, but you look at the right way to get it done. But if it doesn't work that way, you have a backup. And the same thing applies with this personal safety, self-defense. It's about how you carry yourself. That gives you the chance to be, be confident, to be aware of who you are. That minimizes people messing with you. If you have the training, like the gentleman said, you said the person who has confidence, they show it. Well, that's up to you if it's important to you. How important it is to you to have people leave you alone, also get in shape, feel good about yourself, all the things that come along with that. Because the world is not going to change, get better. It's going to get worse. I don't care what anybody says. But I'm not worried about it. I'm going to enjoy my life. I'm going to enjoy my kids. I'm going to enjoy my wife and my friends. Because I know there's no guarantees, but I'm going to enjoy myself until it happens. And as long as I'm prepared, I'm going to be able to do like I do to you. Because my job is to help other people. This is what I put on this earth for. I enjoy doing what I do. So I'm going to thank you all for having me today. And of course, where's your wife? She's gone.
Should be right back.
Okay, and I'm going to let Gary finish things off for you. But again, I want to thanks again.
Thank you, Sensei. Very good. And again, hopefully he answered your questions and made comments that you can take with you naturally. Again, this seminar is just kind of touching upon a lot of the areas that we need to be aware of, what actions we should take. Sensei Hart does personal as well as corporate training as well too, so just want to mention that. His website is earnesthart.com, and again, I invite you every Saturday morning from 11 to 12 on 590 AM to listen to our show, because our show again teaches and informs individuals how to live a safer life. Well, our past shows, we've been dealing with bullying, we've been talking about martial arts, but more of the not a lot of martial arts and self-defense, but more just common sense. And again, what Sensei had mentioned today, again, a lot of it's common sense. You're in a situation where, again, you go to that ATM. If you see that there could be a situation, don't go. Exactly what he said there. So hopefully this answers some questions. The big word, I think, was our #1 segment, is being aware of your surroundings. And that should definitely set you free as far as living a safer life out there. If you have questions on segment 3 or any other questions, we're going to be around here for a while, so make sure you come up here. And again, for my broadcast partner, Sensei Hart, I'm Gary B. Thank you very much for your time.